Hello, everyone. Welcome to Epic Work Items Migration Sync Weekly. It's 11th January 2024. And we have first discussion point, although more of an FYI point by Eugenia. So you want to verbalize, Eugenia?
Yes, just wanted to bring attention to this issue I created. It's very technical, so maybe not much point of discussing it in the meeting, but there are some difference between the permissions for legacy Epic and work items. The problem comes with if we want to update any of them or make them match, work items are using the existing policies. So it would entail modifying permissions also for the legacy Epic. Probably we don't want that. So I found a bigger problem that is, I think what we need is to have policies for each type of work item and not reuse the existing policies. Have it separately, maybe with a different name. So I gave an example there, putting like a WY prefix. And I listed there the benefits, but it would allow us to control the permissions individually, separating from the existing item. For example, we have an incident. So we have a policy called create incident, and now we have a type called incident. So maybe we don't want to mix create a work item incident with create an incident already, because if we start modifying permissions, we will affect existing legacy objects. So from this comes a new proposal of a way of managing the work item permission model. And the reason to create a specific I haven't read the questions, but the reason to create a specific permission per type comes up from needing each type might need a separate permission from just create work item. Just create work item might not be enough. For example, for creating an Epic work item, we need to check that the Epic's feature is available. Or for creating a key result, we also need to check if the OKR license feature is available. So there is a need to have a specific check for each type, but at the same time, I know that we don't want to build logic that are specific for type specific. So that's what I'm promoting this discussion. So any feedback is welcome. I added a POC in that issue as well, because I'm also taking the chance to handle a few other problems we have, like permissions at group level versus project level and stuff like that. But I added all the details in the issue. Maybe people want to verbalize what they're adding.
I just remember that the AUF team is working on these custom roles, and I'm thinking if we could reuse some of that work for exactly this purpose, where we say like, hey, this is the current permission, but you can change it based on the custom roles now.
Yes, I guess we should explore whatever progress we have with permissions. I'm not sure how far or where we are with that. But one of the problems with this proposal is that we have some types not working properly. Like, for example, ticket doesn't have a policy. The reason for it is because now every time we add a new type, we need to manually add a policy for it. That's not in the documentation, and also maybe not something we want to do if we can do automatically, as I am suggesting that we create a policy for each type that exists automatically. And then we prevent that policy if there is a specific check on top of that. But yeah, probably in the future, once we move the way we check permissions, we will update on that. But this will fix the existing problems as well we have at the moment.
I think we've had a couple conversations about this in the past and different issues that I could dig up, but would it be easiest if we just aligned, instead of creating custom policies for each type right now and hard coding that sort of logic, and if we just align on all work items follow the issues permission policies as they are today, where guests can create new issues in public projects, and all work item types have the same set of policies, the same policy basically, and then we can sort of start to integrate in the custom roles and permissions framework, which I think is far enough along now based on conversations I've had with that team, that we can start using it to where you can set roles and permissions like on all work item types. So it applies kind of a blanket standpoint. This seems like it might be more efficient. And then later on, if we want, I can see a future where people might want to, or customers might want to have granular control per work item type, but that seems like a bigger, more complicated lift and more configuration and stuff that we could like push down the road pretty far until it becomes like an urgent problem. But I just know, like, if we start hard coding policies per type, when we get into allowing customers to configure types or even like change the name of a work item or create a new work item, like how do you determine which policies that you apply to it? It sort of would be confusing, I think.
Yeah, and this is that's the main concern, that we don't want to introduce logic that is type specific. The problem comes with trying to regulate some types and not all of them. How do we check that a work item epic cannot be created unless the feature is available, the license, the epics for the group is available? We need to prevent that only in the epic type, not in all of them. So we can't use create work item policy in that case. Same happens with a couple of other types. So it's more like the prevention.
Like tiering the license checks.
Yeah, unless we had a feature that will include all the types that are licensed, like license types or something like that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a way to do it so that you switch the license checks, instead of going against types, you go against the behaviors, like parent levels and that sort of thing. We talked about this before, Amanda. This goes back to like evolving the pricing and packaging for work items.
Yeah, we can tie it to some widgets, I guess. So for instance, for OKRs, like if we say it needs to be on Ultimate if you want to add a progress, right? So then like for having a progress widget, you need to be on a Ultimate license, for instance, right? So then we don't care if you add the progress to a work item called task or to an work item called OKR, because that is interchangeable in a way, right? So like maybe we can tie the licensing to the widgets, but then if we need to go more granular than that, as in you have the hierarchy widget, but like one level hierarchy goes into premium, but multiple level hierarchy goes into ultimate, I don't know that we can easily do that at this point.
Yeah, but at the beginning, when you are creating the record, you are allowed widgets based on the type. So the widgets are also depending on the type, and the permissions at this case are depending on the type. So we want to verify that you can create an epic work item based on a license. That is the problem at the moment. We can't create an epic without checking that feature, license feature.
Yeah, so imagine, for instance, that only epics have hierarchy widget, right? So then when you create an epic, you'd say, what widgets does this epic have? Like, does this work item have? And like for epics, you'll get back that it has this list of widgets, and you look through each of the widget and say, is this widget available at this license level? And then for hierarchy, you'll get a false, right? You get that widget is not possible at a given license level, so you will not be able to create the epic, for instance, right? But you need to have this kind of distinct, I guess, enough widgets that will dictate the tiering.
Yeah, we don't have a model like that at the moment. We are only checking specific license in some widgets as well, like health status and weight, but we're also checking them separately. So yeah, an ideal way would be to unify all of these and come up with a solution. It's just that at the moment, the way we don't have parity and we really can't progress to do the migration until we agree on how the permissions would look. So this will have to be resolved before that.
So on the permissions, on the policies topic, like could we do what we're doing with tickets and have like a base policy for work items that is like a fallback policy, and then temporarily, I know we have to allow customers eventually to customize work items, but to keep this unblocked, like have a like superimpose a epic work item policy on top until we can move to the custom framework.
What we're doing, like for example with OKRs, is you are able to, we just check if you are able to create a work item, and then down the line in deeper in the service, we check when we know the type, if you can create that type, and then we prevent it if you don't have the license OKRs. So we would do it that way, and generally only require create work item. It doesn't scale very well, but if we don't want to go in the route of specific type policies, yeah, I think, yeah, that's the only thing we can do for now until we find a more permanent solution.
I don't want to get a jump on what Gabe's typing, but I suppose I'm confused as well. Like, there are two things, right? There's the permissions policy and the license. And I'm wondering like what's different about epics that, you know, I don't know what the actual permissions are, right? But like that a reporter could create an issue, but not an epic, but they have the same access to the project. Do you know what I mean? Like, so maybe we want to look at that and see if we can merge them.
I think these probably where just over time they diverge or they had different needs. I'm not sure if the product have different needs, but at the moment we do require reporter to create an epic and guest access to create an issue. So there's already a difference. The question comes when if we want to bring the epic, the new epic, to the level of the issue to make it similar to the work item. That's when we need to think, can we modify the existing create epic and affect the legacy epics? Or can we create a new policy that's specific for the work item type epic? I know we don't want that, but it's the only solution I can find so far, unless we just keep either the permission separately, the different, I mean, we still require a reporter to create a work item epic. But like every conversation about permissions is very confusing and long. And so my idea was to try to, maybe bring attention to how to move forward with this. But all the feedback is helpful, because this is gonna be the way moving forward as well with the permissions model for work items.
I don't think we'll sort this all on the call, but I just wanted to be clear that I understand there's two separate issues or blockers. One is the permission role parity with like our roles, which is like guest reporter, developer, that sort of thing between work item types today, because they're different. Yeah. And then the second is license checks and how to not rely on type to determine, I guess, your license checks. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they are usually included in the permission, in the policy. So the policy would check that you are a guest, for example, and that you also have these available for the group. That's usually set in the permissions. So the policy is also checking the feature license.
Okay, I think for the first one, which is your role parity, is there any pushback on adopting the current issue permission model for all work item types? I mean, is it change we could communicate as a release post item or something like that? Like we did that previously with changing the permissions on milestones so that reporters could create milestones, for example. And this would be just something like now, you know, guests can create epics or whatever that looks like, different work item types. So that way, at least we're standardizing the role-based part of the policy across all work item types. And then the second thing, we can collaborate and figure out like how we want to move from like explicit type-based license checks to like putting the license checks on the behavior or on the widgets themselves, or when there is a widget that's shared across different tiers. For example, like the child widget right now is on free because you have tasks. It's on premium because you have 1 level epics, and then it's also an ultimate because you have 9 levels of hierarchy, more or less. So it's figuring like, how do we create that policy model to where there's like on free, we're gonna restrict you to 2 levels. Or it could be even something like free 2 levels, single group only or single namespace only. I don't know what the exact rules are. I think this widget belongs to Amanda, but you could put the restrictions in place where for free you can have 2 levels of hierarchy, but only within the same namespace. So you can't have cross namespace, you know, children, which you can do in premium or in ultimate, and then premium you get 3 levels of hierarchy plus cross group or something, like however we want to describe those things, but it's more or less trying to like moving the license checks from explicitly on the type to the widget to the behaviors of the widget, which is a little bit more nuanced. I think requires more conversation than the first part, which is just adopting the issue permission model.
May I ask, why is there a different permission model between epics and issues?
Legacy.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
well,
wasn't
think
there.
there's good
there's no
reason.
reason.
I think I can answer this actually. So I think in issues, there's a thing where you can report an issue and continue to see the issue if you're the author or the assignee, even if you're no longer a member of the project. And I would doubt that that's the case for epics.
Yeah, we don't
Only if the
check
project is public.
Yeah, but also the creation is very different. The creation for epic requires reporter, where for issue is much more flexible. For issue, you can create an issue even if you're not a member of the group, if the group is public. This is done for contribution. So if you want to create a report, a bug in a public project like GitLab, you're able to go and create it by just being signed in. But with epics, there wasn't that need because it's supposed to be a different use. So you need to be a reporter to be able to open an epic.
Yeah, so actually the special case is issues, not epics, right? Like we want that functionality for issues, but not really for anything else. So I wonder if we can proceed with the so two things, I think. Try to bring epics policies as they exist currently for legacy epics as close to issues as possible, without that pattern that we want to keep for issues. Then proceed with this migration as if that's the case. And then when it comes to moving issues into work items, then we have to deal with the problem that we want that behavior to remain. So issues as work items will remain like a special case.
Sorry,
Yeah,
why do we want epics? Why do we want to retain? I thought we were going less. I thought we were taking the issues permissions for epics. Did I misunderstand that?
If we do that, then in public projects, non-members will be able to create epics. Is that right?
I don't know that I have an issue with that.
This is a case at the moment
either.
for every work item type.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
because you can change the type. Theoretically, you can change the type at any point in the future, right? So if somebody creates the wrong type, you can move it, change it to whatever the type you want. And we've also gotten reports where like there's guest users on Ultimate that want to be able to create epics. They can't today.
That's right. That's right.
So
also guests can create but cannot update. So like they report something, but they can no longer then change whatever metadata you set up on the epic or issue or whatnot.
So I think we
Same
can
thing you can do on
standardize. I think we can agree to standardize on one framework for all work items, but we could take what are those exact permissions to an issue to discuss further. Does that sound okay?
Okay, Eugenia, so we'll use your issue that you opened, and that'll be the decision for this.
Yes. Yes, we might have to adapt it because it was very biased on one solution, but yes, I can move part of the discussion, or everyone can go and write their own suggestions if they're willing to. Thanks. I don't know if anyone else was missing in the discussion in the list. I think that's everyone.
I think the next discussion point is by Nicholas.
Yeah, so when we're still like working on the syncing and the backfilling of epic work items, but I'm thinking once this is done, how can we validate that the data is actually in sync, and that we are fine to migrate everything and only write to the issues table at some point? Because I'm scared, and even though we have tests, well, we know just today it was like, do we sync the updated ad, for example, correctly or created ad? Like small stuff can happen, and should we invest in some mechanism that validates the whole thing, where it goes like once per week, a cron shop through all epics, compares like a normalized version to the work items issue, like the work item epic, and then checks it, like if it's the same or not. Should we, like we have some time, but should we do this?
So I just like we need something, but I'm not seeing how that would work for self-managed customers, right? So what is the reporting sort of thing? So would we use I don't know, service ping to report that on some self-managed customers something got out of sync because of, I don't know, some edge case scenario that happened only for them? Like how does, I can see the need for that. I'm just not exactly understanding how is that going to be helpful to us, or how can we use it, right? But yeah, I see your point and your pain. I understand your pain. It's just like I don't have an answer for how we can use that information.
Two ideas for like self-managed, either service ping would be one thing, although it's like rather delayed, not everyone has service ping enabled. Second idea would be, isn't there a way to email the admin of the instance that's like something happens in the instance, like there's like a bug or like any error, and we could, once it's rolled out and we should have a correct sync, email the admin like, hey, there's something going on in your database that's not correctly, please reach out. You know, this is like, I mean, on the other hand, if it works on GitLab.com, it's a good proof, and then maybe they can run a self-check that everything is safe. I know, like, it's super hard to self-manage, but the question first is like, do we need this or want this?
Yeah, but that will mean like we cannot release per se anything until it's really tested on .com completely, right?
Yeah. I don't think we want to, right?
I mean, we usually do incremental things like you deliver something and then work on it and then deliver something and then fix it and work on it. I mean, that communication will be so much more difficult with all of the self-managed instances and data when you have to run this kind of checks. Kind of like on, probably not for self-managed, but on .com you have like around 300, 400,000 epics. So I'm not sure how long it takes to really check all the data, especially if you think how the data is then split out into issues table, all the events, all the to-dos, all the comments, all the, like, checking all the notes. That's even more data than just 300,000 records. So I'm not sure how feasible that is, even for .com, for .com to check that stuff. Maybe it's feasible if we limit it to just one group or something like that, right? Like GitLab board, which is probably having most epics. I would assume, I don't know that data, but I would think so. Maybe that is something, but still, the data tree grows like up by a lot when you have to check all the data in all the associations and so on.
Yeah, I understand that. Maybe it's also a one-time check that we do, or like a script of the data and check it before we do like the full rollout, and only on the GitLab.
We do it when we do the backfill, because if in my understanding, we're only doing unidirectional sync, so we're not going to keep both records updated. So once we complete every epic with a work item, I think we need to make sure that the IIDs are the same and that each legacy epic has a work item, and then the data in the work item we have to assume is correct, because we ran a migration or something that extracted that data from the work item. Is that?
I'd like to have something like that, but let's I think we should open an issue and discuss what options do we have, and how can we ensure that we have everything in sync before we can move on to writing only to one table. So like to avoid any kind of data loss.
Do like a demo locally. That's what I would like to do. I can't visualize the whole every steps, and I keep getting confused. I wish we had pretend we're doing it locally, and once we have the code that's doing the sync and all of that, run the migrations and maybe some of these tests and do the backfilling, and then pretend we don't look at the epics table anymore beside the ID.
I think that at the point of correct me if I'm wrong, right? It's been a couple of weeks. But at the point we do the backfill, we're still reading and writing the old table. It's just getting immediately synced to the work items table, right? And at that point, then you're able to, like, you have thousands of rows, like hundreds of thousands of rows, you can check that they match. And then we start piecemeal going one by one and saying, okay, we're no longer reading basic attributes from the old table. We're now reading them from the new table. And then we're no longer reading this widget or that widget. And so we're gradually moving piecemeal. And I think if we drop something along the way, the radius should be fairly limited, right? So if we somehow messed up syncing due date or something, it should be just that thing, right? Like we should be able to like roll that back, read from the legacy table, fix it, and then switch it back again. Am I wrong?
That's correct, but like you still want to have some sort of way to validate yourself that you've not missed something, right? That's why we are making this process unidirectional, to write to the places, read from one place, and so on. But like, it's hard to really foresee every single possibility, and again, like race conditions happen, edge cases happen, so data may get out of sync in some specific situations, and you end up with basically losing data. So having a way to kind of check yourself and check your data is in a good state is something that is preferable to have. I'm just not sure exactly what the solution is.
Yeah, the only thing is that like at that point we should have all the data in our read replica, and we should be able to run all sorts of checks on .com that would verify everything ran correctly. Like I don't know if we'll be able to check if the backfilling somehow was corrupted on a self-hosted instance. Like, you know, what should we expect in that situation? I don't know. Yeah, maybe like some kind of programmatic check.
I think the backfilling is less of a problem, because really what backfilling will do is basically copy over data for items that are not used in a way, right? Because everything else would have basically gotten in sync with the updates from the code itself. Like anything that's actively used is being written into two places, and it's basically in sync. And the backfilling is basically just updating items that are stale in a way, right?
Didn't we agree to not do that though? I think
To not update both.
Yeah,
to
we
update
update
both.
everything, but like if you think about it, for active items, it will basically do nothing because everything's already up to date, right? So it just has nothing really to update. If assuming everything works correctly, like there is no update. Even like Postgres will not run an update if the data is the same. Basically, it will change nothing. It will just return.
Yeah, no, I mean that I think that we decided with the syncing work not to create or update, but just to create an epic for new epics that are created and to catch everything else with the backfill. I could be wrong though. That might be stale. I'm just saying that you were saying that, well, we're just backfilling anything that's, you know, not really getting any use anyway. But I'm not sure if that's what we decided to go with. I think that during the syncing work, we decided that, or Felipe decided that we would just create epics for new epics that are created and not for
Right.
ones that are being updated, and they would be caught by the backfill.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that was in one of the issues. Yeah, we only create the new ones. The existing ones will be created with backfill.
Yeah, so in that scenario, we are backfilling actively used epics, you know.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take that as well as a separate issue. I will create one. Maybe you have other ideas. And one more topic around syncing I wanted to bring up, because I think Eugenia created this issue today about syncing events and to-dos. And I think then also nodes. And Alexandro mentioned there are two options. Either we duplicate them and sync them, or we connect the work items data. So I'm curious, like if we want to make a decision or if, on this. And if you have more insights.
I think we discussed it also in the last meeting, and we said that if data lives in a different table, then like the association, we replace the data. Like we don't, or yeah, that's correct, right? Then like if it's a table, so for instance, epics and issues for nodes use the same table, right? The nodes table is used both by epic and issues. And in that case, we don't want to duplicate the data. We want to basically convert the epic data into the issue data. Does that make sense? And then for tables for data that lives in different tables, I guess epics will have linked epics, or I don't know what. Then for those cases, you want to create a new record. Just because you cannot simply replace that data or update that data within the existing table. You need to create a new record in the corresponding issues table.
But it also means a one-time migration. So, Eugenia, you wanted to say something, you were muted, sorry.
Sorry, I was just been talking like for 5 minutes. Yeah, I was saying that covers probably these two cases you were mentioning here: events, to-dos, well, also nodes. because they are using a shared table. So in to-dos, we have mentionable ID. That could be an epic or a work item. Events is the same, I think, eventable ID, or I don't remember the name it uses, and notes is notable ID. So instead of creating new records, we would update that in the backfield, I think. And then we would have to redirect from the item that's not linked anymore, in this case, the legacy epic, would have to point to that event in the work item.
Yeah, I mean, for this kind of tables, we'll need to do some sort of a union. So for instance, for notes, you'd select all the notes that have notable type epic and notable ID, the legacy ID, union with the notable type issue and the new work item ID, and like something similar for all these cases where we use a shared table. And actually similar for the other cases, I would think, because you want to select both. I don't know. I'll need to think about like separate tables. It's probably you need to check if there is something in the work item related tables, then you don't want to fetch the legacy epic, but like we can figure it out as we get there.
But this answers my question. Thanks. With the union, I think this is a great idea.
So just a quick question here. We are going to like retain the original timestamps of all the events, right? Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's all we have to discuss. Anything else anyone wants to bring? All right, so we have one follow-up to do before next meeting. Nicholas already assigned himself to it regarding post-verification of backfills. And yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good rest of the week.